grew up on Zoboomafoo with the live-action Kratt brothers, so when my sister showed me the Wild Kratts years ago, you know what I thought? Did I think, wow, isn't it nice that my sister can grow up with them too? No! I was unfortunately a jerk. I thought, wow, they're cartoons now? They changed. Back in my day, they just showed us real-life animals without all the bells and whistles. As if they didn't make this lemur turn into a puppet every episode. And as if the Wild Kratts doesn't start and end every single one of their episodes with the live-action Kratt brothers and live-action animals. I'm pretty sure you already know this, but past Athena was very wrong. Like when I ranked them low on the Crush tier list. I understand, but not for me. Past Athena, you dumb bitch! What was I thinking?
Your video to me the show. I do.
Butt lovers! Welcome back to the Lore series, where we cover shows no one else is brave enough to. And usually we don't cover shows that are still airing, so this usual disclaimer is needed now more than ever. Even though the shows are intended for kids, my videos are not. This show has been airing for 13 years with no signs of it slowing down. It's also nice to cover a PBS kids show again. It's been a while, but I will defend this network and their educational programming with my life. Just wanted to let you know that the AdSense from this video is going towards the Kratt Brother Creature Foundation to protect wildlife. I'll be sure to give you receipts in a month, just like I did with the Descendants lore video when we donated the AdSense to the Cameron Boyce Foundation. Before we begin, here's a creature fact. Did you know that elephants are known as one of the greatest mothers? And they are super protective. Super protective? Kind of reminds me of this video's sponsor, NordVPN. Now I know what you're thinking. Athena, I've heard all about virtual private networks. I know all about them. No, you don't. I also thought I knew everything there was to know about virtual private networks, but NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro was a real game changer for me. This holiday season, I'm doing a lot of online shopping, and did you know people lie on the internet? More times than I can count, I ordered a product that quite simply doesn't exist. NordVPN is saving me from that heartbreak. Threat Protection Pro warns you if you're about to stumble into a fake shop. Most VPNs promise an online protection feature, but will still leave you vulnerable to a lot of phishing, malware, scams, and other online threats that NordVPN's advanced protection will stop dead in its tracks. NordVPN also has a dark web monitor. It is always scanning the sketchy underbelly of the internet, even when you're not connected to a VPN server. NordVPN goes above and beyond to protect me and you. Go to nordvpn.com/AthenaP for an exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 months extra. Again, that's nordvpn.com/AthenaP. It's risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you so much again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Wild Kratts. The episode Mom of a Crocodile opens with live-action Martin and Chris admiring the Nile crocodiles and saying there's a softer side to them. They ponder if they can get to know this softer side and say their classic "what if," which makes them transform into their cartoon selves. This is how it always starts, and I love it. They are canonically the same, just in different dimensions. Now these brothers, as you will quickly find out, are pretty unhinged. Especially when it comes to getting up close and personal with creatures. We already know they're studying crocodiles this episode, but instead of transforming into baby crocs, with creature power, which the theme song introduces to us before the show even does, they just shrink in their miniaturizer machine, put on egg disguises, and get buried by the mama croc. They go through the entire process of being born as a baby croc. They even acknowledge that it's been a month, so Jimmy sends them some food with the teleporter. This whole episode takes place over 3 months because that's how long the incubation takes. Chris even calls the mom crocodile.
Nice move, Mom! I'm not your fucking mom, okay?
Actually, the crocodile couldn't tell. In fact, a soft-shelled turtle laid her eggs in the same nest so that the mama croc would defend her babies, and it worked. I learned so much about animals while watching the show. I really thought it would be for babies, like this is a shell, it protects the turtle, and there was a little bit of that because it's still important to know. The entire time, the inventor of the group, Aviva, is just trashing crocs for being mean. And meanwhile, everyone's just trying to get her to see that they're protective. Her hatred of them goes so far that after she witnesses a hippo trying to attack this crocodile, she gets started working on a hippo robot. It came in handy at the end when Chris and Martin were normal-sized and couldn't reason with the mama croc just to protect themselves, but let it be known that Aviva started working on this machine out of spite. A weird introduction to Aviva because I feel like she's not usually this level of stubborn. Chris and Martin, after they're saved by Aviva at the end, throw caution to the wind, using their creature power suits to turn into dragonflies to teach the baby crocs how to hunt. This is funny because not only is it super risky for no reason, but also I thought they used these creature power suits to empathize with the creatures they're turning into. But in this episode, they don't have Nile crocodile powers. They just turn into dragonflies to be their prey. Imagine how the dragonflies would feel watching this. We return to live-action Chris and Martin, comparing some similarities and differences between crocodiles and the ball python. All the creature facts were super interesting, but my favorite was learning about how the temperature of the eggs affects the baby croc's gender. The hatchlings are all male at around 88 degrees Fahrenheit, but any colder or warmer and they'll be female. Wow, it really makes you think. Yeah, about how these animal facts are so cool. Nah. About how women are too cold or too hot, but men are just right. You could say that again, bro. I'm Glasses brother. It's like Goldilocks, but for men. Goldie Cox. You guys are brothers? Don't tell me you guys are supposed to be the Kratt brothers. They would never say this. We're not the Kratt brothers? Yeah, we're the Crap brothers.
Come on, move it, Marty!
Okay, that does it.
In Whale of a Squid, a sperm whale uses sonar or echolocation, and this loud sound breaks the windows of the submarine they're in. But they will never back down from a teachable moment. They are giving a play-by-play like it's a sports game as they are in trouble. Chris pushes the limits when the team warns him about the water pressure, but he still wants to see a giant squid and a sperm whale fight.
We can't miss this battle.
Yeah, but we don't want to get crushed either.
He loses control and the sub sinks deeper. Aviva saves them, but the brothers say the worst part is that they didn't get to see the fight.
Fight, 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 fight!
Guys, you almost died! They trust that the sperm whale creature power will withstand the water pressure from the sperm whale's DNA, but Aviva, the inventor of this creature power, is still worried. The Kratt brothers would do anything to learn more about animals. I didn't realize how many times their lives would be on the line though, so the stakes are high. On top of that, Jimmy Z's position on the team seems less beneficial for their expeditions and more educational for Jimmy. Aviva and Koki had to teach him what DNA is and what water pressure is. How did he get this job? I thought maybe he's an intern? It seems like he's just there to fetch and send things like he does with the teleporter. I was gonna say he's giving Big Fred from Big Hero 6 vibes, where he's eager to learn but doesn't know as much, but randomly, in the episode Flight of the Draco, he's extremely sexist.
It goes that far before it falls to the floor.
Not too far. That's because you throw like a girl.
Don't you?
Dude, it's so typical for the least qualified guy to be the one talking shit. I know this is someone's comfort character, but I simply don't care. In the episode Elephant in the Room, dumbass Jimmy left his sandwich on the floor. Then he gets mad when the baby elephant that he knew was in the room with his sandwich on the floor stepped on his sandwich. His solution is to eat the sandwich on the teleporter next time, which obviously doesn't work out.
Jimmy can keep an eye on Thornsley.
If I have to.
Why is Jimmy here? Is this supposed to be comic relief? I can't believe I just pulled a not funny, didn't laugh at a kid show. This is a new low. One very confusing piece of information was in the episode Honey Seekers. When they needed to teleport something to the trapped Kratt brothers, Jimmy was asleep, so Aviva rushed to hand deliver the creature power discs. Why couldn't she use the teleporter? New theory, Jimmy's dad is rich and was a mentor to Aviva, but he wanted to secure permanent employment for his idiot son. So he made the others contractually promise that Jimmy would be the only teleporter, for it is his only job. Which would be a great theory, except at the end of season 1, in the episode Sea Squatch, we do see Aviva using the teleporter, and after that, Aviva and Koki use the teleporter a handful of times. Before I rant more about annoying Jimmy moments, I do find it funny and endearing that we hear him talk about how much he wants to be a video game developer. It adds a new level of what are you doing here, why is this your job? But in a funner way, because I love side quests. If they ever release any Wild Kratts related games, they should make it seem like Jimmy's the one that made the game. I think that would be a really cute Easter egg. So it turns out they do have games, and I discovered something really fun.
Game.
So I'll play this on the second channel sometime. But back to complaining. In Kicking It with the Ruse, when the smart members of the team try to explain to Jimmy how male and female kangaroos are different and bring up the pouch, we hear more of his toxic masculinity.
That's a guy kangaroo, Jimmy. They don't have pouches.
Probably for the same reason I don't want to carry my mom's purse.
Okay.
Tinky Winky, kill him with purse smack! For the sake of being unbiased, I must point out that his characterization completely changes after season 1. Instead of being a brat, he's a nervous wreck, really respecting Koki and Aviva, and trying his best not to get in their way. It's about time. In the episode Flight of the Draco, Chris is falling after doing sick parkour, and he looks in the camera and talks about physics or something as he's falling. In this episode, he's also extremely braggy with Martin, talking about how he's the better climber. This is the first time they mention this distinction. It comes up a lot more in this series. Chris is the climbing brother, Martin is the swimming brother. I'm gonna die on the hill, though, that Martin is way less braggy about it.
You've got to keep up if we're gonna... What are you talking about? I was right behind you.
He even says, quote, "What is this? A who's the better climbing brother contest?" Get his ass, Martin. Get his ass. I also wrote here, I'm secretly hoping there's at least one brother fight so this can be accurate sibling representation. The fight happens in the last season, and it is not over what I expected it to be over.
Guys, it doesn't have to be blue or green.
These guys are silly and they're also goofballs, just so you know. I'm sorry to make it this real, but I always wondered how siblings worked together professionally. Like, I wonder if they ever had a fight in real life and then had to go record lines.
Oh yeah, a red-eyed tree frog. That vacant red-eyed stare is the same look Martin gave me when he got stoned and ate the rest of my chips. Don't bring the frog into it, bro.
But the episode, of course, took a more wholesome approach, and we see the brothers actually give a crap. I mean, Kratt. After Chris fell, he developed a brief fear of climbing. And even though he was being cocky before, you feel for him, because he's just a silly guy. In Platypus Cafe, to figure out how platypuses get around without seeing, smelling, or hearing, Chris pushes Martin down a river blindfolded, nose plugged, and ears plugged. And Martin is once again way too nice about this. He says direct, quote, "Next time, you can be the guinea pig for your own experiments." And while that line itself sets a boundary, he does it in the nicest way possible. Season 2 evens the score with the episode Roadrunner. They are begging Koki for more time in the desert because she is determined to leave and get more supplies. So to convince her to let them stay for a few more minutes, Martin pushes Chris into a cactus. The cartoony roughhousing of these siblings is actually kind of beautiful, especially because they brush it off so easily. It is never that deep. Except when Martin ruined this clothesline and Chris growled at him and chased him. Out of all their fuck-ups, that was probably the most tame with the biggest reaction. I went on quite the journey just to arrive at the conclusion that they're goobers. I already knew this, but I just have to give all the examples because I want to. The good thing is sometimes they frame their impulsiveness and impatience as a bad thing. A flawed character is more interesting, and it's why we don't need villain appearances every episode. For example, in the penultimate episode of season 1, Googly Eye, the Night Guru, Aviva tells them the nocturnal goggles that she's inventing are not ready yet, and she'll finish them in the morning. And when they don't listen to her and use them, they get lost in the night. The brothers are seen repeatedly waking up their co-workers / friends, but the second most egregious example is in the episode To Touch a Hummingbird, when they wake up Koki and Aviva with a horn, playing their own damn theme song. Luckily, they get very caught up in the beauty of nature, so their anger subsides quickly. But here's a question I pose to you. Are the brothers their boss? Like, sure, the Octonauts were woken up by the Octo Alert, but that's when someone needed their help. This was just Martin and Chris getting excited, which, as endearing as it is, if they're the bosses, let your employees sleep. Luckily, the unprofessionalism is mutual, because in this same episode, when a hummingbird bamboozles the bros so much their clothes fall off, they tiptoe into the headquarters as they are brutally being roasted.
It's gonna be so easy to touch a hummingbird. So easy to touch a hummingbird. So easy, so easy. It's gonna be simple. It's gonna be simple. So easy, simple. So easy, simple. It's gonna be simple.
Another time they woke up the crew was in the season 3 episode Hermit Crab Shell Exchange, when they put in these blaring alarms that they call the wow factor. Because if they see a cool creature fun fact, it cannot wait till they wake up. But they were all glad they woke up to see the Hermit Crab Shell Exchange in person. They all hopped on a speedboat to get there as quick as possible 2 seconds after waking up. The lesson of this episode is find people that match your freak. Not a neurotypical among them. In Tortuga Tune-Up, when Martin got carried away flying their headquarters, he spun it around so fast he flung Koki off of it. She's furious, understandably so. In fact, she forgave him far too quickly.
Sorry, Koki.
Now, how am I supposed to interpret that? That face, sigh, and sound effect just screams you're lucky you're cute. Aviva and Koki are very patient with the brothers. The only time they lose their cool is in the season 3 episode When Fish Fly. Martin must have fully lost his mind, because right before he and Chris were about to take off, he carelessly and condescendingly jazz hands and says, "We can't just sit around all day making inventions." They hype up these women so much, it feels like that came out of nowhere. So we have a classic switching places to appreciate the other more. A trope I'm pretty sure has appeared in every single show I've covered. In Mystery of the Weird-Looking Walrus, right after the Kratt brothers were attacked by an octopus, instead of, swimming away for their lives, they stay to watch that same octopus demolish a clam. Chris teases Martin and asks if he wants to give the pearl they found to Aviva.
Do you want to give it to Aviva for a present? No.
Huh? A lot of people ship these characters, but I try my best not to. Because these character designs are based on real people and they use their real-ass names, so... But even with that in mind, that line made my shipping ears perk up. So I searched through the wiki, and if you could believe it, on April 1st, the most inconspicuous of dates, a very credible source said that Chris and Aviva are gonna get married soon in Wild Kratts animated movie. Kratt brothers confirmed during the interview that Chris and Aviva will be relationship as dating in season 7. As possible getting married in Wild Kratts animated film, it's about time for Kaviva fans. Pretty cool that they took off time from educating about animals to confirm that animated Chris is not romantically involved with an animated version of his real-life wife, but instead Aviva. Also, again, while I don't ship anyone here because I'm too busy learning about animals, if I were to ship one of the Kratts with Aviva, I mean...
Seeing how my salamander power suit programming works.
Ooh, or if there's a malfunction.
Stop it.
Bro literally said, "Yo, Aviva, you want me to chomp on your hair? If that's not love, then what is?" Martin always names the baby creatures, and in the episode Walk on the Wet Side, Chris criticizes the name he gave this lizard. Because it's a water-walking lizard, Skitter isn't specific enough. I thought it was a cute one. Chris the critic, okay? But in the next episode, Elephant in the Room, Martin named this baby elephant, listen to this.
He's got a big thorn in his foot. That's why I'm gonna name him Thornsley.
So, no input for that one, Christopher? Don't name animals after their trauma. Oh, wow. She won't stop talking about her daddy issues. Yeah, even though no one asked. That's why I'm calling her No Dadsley. A rhino charged at them and flipped the car with them inside. They could have died and they're laughing. It's clear that if they're risking their lives together, there isn't a problem, but when one is in trouble and the other witnesses it, the one who's witnessing it spirals. In Flight of the Pollinators, we see Martin repeatedly freaking out over Chris's safety. And in the episode Zigzagged, when Martin was swimming away from a crocodile, Chris said that if he couldn't save his brother, he'd be croc food right beside him. He was on land at that point, so he literally said, if the croc gets to you, I will jump in the water and sacrifice myself.
My big brother.
So clearly I was wrong. They do give a crap about the animals and each other. Most of the time we see them equally passionate about animals, so I love when we get to see their differences. In Season 1's Mystery of Squirmy Wormy, Chris is hype about getting to build something, whereas Martin is dreading it. We also see repeatedly that Martin is messy while Chris is organized. Martin is relatable to me, so the fact that Chris is a fan favorite feels like a personal attack. Another difference, as I pointed out earlier, is Chris is the climbing brother and Martin is the swimming brother. I wonder if that's how they chose their colors, green and blue, because they've been doing the whole green and blue thing since the beginning. Maybe it's just their favorite color.
We have technology.
In the Season 1 episode Whale of a Squid, after the live-action Kratt bros are seen hanging out with fin whales, which I only mentioned because it's cool as fuck, we see the cartoon Kratt brothers in the Amphasub. It's a submarine that not only allows them to see the aquatic life, but also with the exploration valve, they can stick their arms through and feel the sea life.
Touch. Don't touch.
The one problem with this tech is that the sea life can get through this valve as well, as seen when the giant squid was attacking Martin with his tentacles. In this episode, the Amphasub was also crushed by water pressure. You'd be surprised how much of their technology gets destroyed and fixed and destroyed again and fixed and destroyed, and sometimes never fixed. This episode is also the second time I saw the Tortuga HQ, which is not only their home base, but it can also travel through the sea, and in the air, and on land. In the beginning of this series, every time a Viva hologram calls them, she is positioned as if she's there with them. For example, in Mom of a Croc, her hologram is riding on the croc's back. And in Flight of the Draco, her hologram is sitting on a branch with Martin. Martin and Aviva sitting in a tree. It's a cute detail, but I wonder what that call would look like from her perspective. Alright, let me just call the guys. Oh, fuck, are they on horseback right now? So, do you guys need a hand, or? In the episode Mystery of the Squirmy Wormy, they use the miniaturizer for the first time, despite us seeing it in the first episode, Mom of a Croc. So the airing order isn't necessarily the canon order. Awesome, amazing. Aviva calls them cute after they shrink, and we see her looking down at them, but she video called them. They look as confused as I feel. How is she seeing them as small? Wouldn't the camera be on Chris's wrist? You're so cute and small.
What is happening?
In this episode, Aviva also makes a worm-mobile. I found it interesting that this was a form of transportation instead of a creature power moment. In fact, they didn't use any creature powers this episode. In Build It Beaver, Martin uses the creature power of fish to distract an otter. But I thought he'd be a giant fish because he didn't use the miniaturizer. But he did, in fact, shrink just from the creature power alone. This doesn't always happen. Especially because in the next episode, the Butterflyer XT, we see Martin using a monarch creature power, and he looks like a giant human-sized caterpillar. Keep this information about miniaturizers versus creature powers that just make you mini and put them in your back pocket. The format of some of these episodes is just, what if we didn't have Google and couldn't look things up? Like, when Aviva hears how far a butterfly migration is, she exclaims, "No way!" And she means it. She fully means it. So Chris and Martin said, "Bet." And they used the Butterflyer XT, which is a mini mode of transportation, to follow the migration to prove to Aviva what scientists have already discovered. Chris and Martin hibernate with the butterflies for 4 months. All the while, Aviva is working on the Monarch butterfly power, so this is just Chris and Martin in their miniaturized form, not eating and drinking for 4 months. How? Another time the creature power shrunk them was in the episode The Blue and the Gray, when turning them into a blue jay and a squirrel, and I thought to myself, why have the miniaturizer at all at this point? But then in season 1 episode 12, Fireflies, they have buzz bikes, which are flying transportation with big glowy butts, like, you know, fireflies, or lightning bugs if you will. Very similar to the Butterflyer XT in that it mimics the creature's abilities before they have the creature power. The one other notable thing is that that the buzz bikes aren't tiny until they're miniaturized, along with the brothers riding them.
Hey, Blinker, dude, what's up? You're asking him what's up? It's just an icebreaker. Relax.
In the episode Stuck on Sharks, when the brothers are trying to study sharks, the manta riders aren't effective because sharks hunt manta rays. So to fix this, Aviva makes a Remora rocket sub, and once again the guys miniaturize to go into their mini form of transportation. So this makes a lot of sense. It's for the tech outside of the creature powers, so I stand corrected. They still need the miniaturizer. The Remora rocket sub sucks onto a shark, much like real Remoras, and Aviva also gave the sub a body scanner to check on the health and well-being of the great white. This is how they discover the great white is pregnant. The real question isn't why do they need a miniaturizer if the creature powers already have it, but instead why can't they have shrink and grow abilities in the suit so they don't get slowed down by it. I have lost track of how many times they've set down the miniaturizer and stepped on it and shrunk or went back to normal size or even grew, and then they stepped off of it and then it got destroyed or something, or they had to have a whole journey back to it. It was like miles and miles away. It being a physical thing when it could just always be on them, I don't know. It seems like Aviva could very easily fix this problem. We have seen the animated Kratt brothers disregard their safety many a time, but a very notable example of this is in the episode Caracal Mitten, when Aviva loses a family heirloom of a badminton birdie and begins sobbing about it. So the brothers do everything in their power to get this birdie back from a caracal. The one plan they had that worked is baiting the caracal, because they couldn't catch up to it. So first they considered turning into the guinea fowl themselves with the creature power, but then they realized they wouldn't be much help dead. And that's what I call character growth. So instead they make a mechanical bird that they traveled inside miniaturized. This is my personal apology to the miniaturizer. You are useful, because after all, a person's a person no matter how small. In the episode Honey Seekers, we see what looks like a backpack with wings, which they call the Insecticopter. You'd think the creature powers alone would be enough, but they have a lot of gadgets. And you know what, the more I think about it, it makes sense, because to activate the creature powers, you have to touch a creature. They travel around a lot. The creatures aren't always going to be there. So this is a bit more convenient. Even though they have the functional flapping wings of the Insecticopter, in the episode The Food Chain Game, we see that they also have what looks like a hand glider that they call Falcon Flyers. The creature pod is seen in many episodes, but in the episode The Little Howler, we see them playing back a recording they took to figure out why a wolf cub snuck into Martin's backpack. The creature pod is usually used for scanning a creature to send information back to Aviva, and it's also used for video calls and to project images into the air. These projections usually help aid in the lesson they're teaching, and it'll also usually be live action. In the episode Tazzy Chris, we see them tagging Tasmanian devils to track and study them so they don't go extinct. I love when they use real-life technology and techniques, and they're just as enthusiastic for this real-life tech as they are for the more sci-fi elements of this show. In this episode, the creature power suit malfunctioned after a Tasmanian devil chomp, causing Chris to go fully fucking feral. And he starts to crave dead, rotting meat, as well as literal garbage. The suit even made his teeth pointy. How? Usually the creature power suits give them these abilities without altering their features, which is why Chris's pointy teeth really threw me off. I thought I found another example in the episode Kerhonk, when they seemingly grew a giant proboscis monkey nose, but after closer inspection, their human noses are still underneath. In the episode Octopus Wild Kratticus, Aviva invents the octopod, inspired by the Great Pacific Octopus. Wait, that sounds so familiar. Is that the Octonauts octopod is also based off the giant Pacific octopus, and they look so scarily similar to the point where I'm wondering if Aviva accidentally created the prototype for these post-humanity superior species to stumble upon and improve on. While zooming on the manta riders, Martin accidentally tossed their creature power suits into the ocean. Aviva exasperatedly says,
"It took me 11 months, 14 days, and 3 hours to develop that technology."
She developed this technology in under a year? Martin seemed genuinely apologetic and remorseful.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Aviva.
I'll forgive you, Ace Manta Rider, when you find my creature power suits.
But somehow he and Chris were super optimistic. You'd think they'd be worried too. An octopus gets its tentacles on the creature power suit, creating some pretty cool looking but terrifying creatures. First, half octopus, half walrus. Then it added shark. Then it added bowhead whale. And then finally a mackerel to of the mix. Every time they thought they found a new species, so the brothers barely cared about the creature power suits and were more excited about their discovery. Once they realized it was just the creature power suits, Aviva gave this very dramatic speech in dramatic lighting to remind the brothers that the power suits give them, the powers. This causes them to finally buckle in and get serious. Their safari vehicle is called the Krattera VX, and those letters brought me back to Gup B, Gup C, Gup Elemento P, but the letters and or Roman numerals misled me, because we never see another Krattera throughout this show. Although the wiki says this might be a joke about how often we see how many times she fixes the tech after the Kratt brothers accidentally wreck it, in the episode Kicking It with the Ruse, we see a new feature. The Krattera VX has a horn that sounds like the kookaburra bird. In a huge turn of events, in the episode The Blue and the Gray, as Martin and Chris are having a Blue Jay versus Squirrels face-off over who plants more trees, Martin accidentally gets the creature power of Acorn, and he grows into a tree. This is when we learn how important trees are to the ecosystem, and oh my god, is he getting eaten?
Bruh.
And he just doesn't care? Even though this is obviously important for the tech section to acknowledge that they can turn into plants too, they can activate plant power, this is also just another example of them not giving a crap. Another example of plant creature power was when they turned into blades of grass in the Food Chain game. In the Season 1 episode Cheetah Racer, we see that the creature power activation where they have to touch an animal also works with animal bones. Chris touched a gazelle skull and was able to turn into one. In the episode Mimic, we see Martin pretend to be a rock, like PETA in the Hunger Games.
Only you can mimic a rock.
But he didn't do this with creature powers because rocks aren't alive like plants. So like, how did he do this? They don't explain. We get to see them reunite with animals they've already met, and we see that the creature power suits help them speak the animal's language. We first see the MIK in the episode The Gecko Effect. The MIK is the mobile invention kit, so Aviva can make new creature powers on the go. They've needed this for a while. A lot of the suspense from earlier episodes was her inventing down to the wire in the Tortuga and teleporting it over at the last second. If they keep using the MIK, they won't even need to teleport and they can finally fire Jimmy. In Flight of the Pollinators, while looking for a miniaturized Chris, Martin uses Aviva's antenna invention so he can pick up on all the scents that attract pollinators. And since we're talking about flowers and other sweet smells, Martin makes this Charlie Brown looking face, which I find quite adorable. All of you can't stop talking about Chris, 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 Chris. Martin deserves some love. And I think we should all hold space for that. We see this smell detection again in Termites versus Tongues. As they ride on termite hovercrafts, they smell various smelly smells, including warthog musk. One thing I love about the episode Shadow the Black Jaguar is I learned there's about a 1 in 16 chance of a jaguar cub being born black. And this is reflected in the jaguar creature power suit. Aviva didn't make a separate creature power disc. They have the exact same ability, the only difference is the code. So every time they activate the creature power suit, they have a 1 in 16 chance of being black. I should rephrase that.
Oh, I feel so white!
Anyway, I love when animal facts remind me of Pokemon, because tell me this isn't just exactly the same as shiny Pokemon. Let's get back on topic, but stay tuned for the strange science of Pokemon coming in January. Speaking of evolution, in the episode Aqua Frog, Aviva programs the entire life cycle of the frog into the creature power disc. This makes sense from an educational standpoint, of course. But when would they ever need tadpole powers? Season 2, Episode 16, Rattlesnake Crystal, was so stressful for such a stupid reason. Tortuga HQ crashes, and then we see its power source, which is Tellurium crystals. Never mentioned before. Anyway, they're running low on the crystal's power. Why would they choose a rare, brittle, mildly toxic element to power the Tortuga and all their tech? Because, by the way, every piece of tech Aviva made, aside from the creature power suits, yeah, they're powered by the Tortuga, which is powered by Tellurium. Listen, who knows why she decided that, but now we have 3 hours until the Tortuga HQ goes into an irreversible meltdown. Was the Tortuga invented by Dr. Doofenshmirtz? What a dumb fuck design. It also didn't warn them until it was down to the wire. Like I said, it already controls all their technology, and when there's only a minute left, they evacuate like it's going to explode. There's gotta be another way. I thought it was run by solar power, or some type of sustainable energy, to fit the whole wildlife conservation theme. I don't know why they'd rely on a finite resource that's difficult enough to find as it is. In Tortuga Tune-Up, Aviva says she is the proudest of the Tortuga, but she wants to add something. May I suggest that it's powered by something else and maybe it doesn't have a meltdown so you don't all fear that you're gonna die? I don't know, just a thought, just throwing it out there. Chris and Martin point out all the features they love, like the retractable limbs, and the pattern changing on the outside, which I'm not sure we've seen up until that point. So their new mode is for the Tortuga to swim instead of just floating above or being anchored down. Useful, but my idea was still better. Also, I don't know how to break this news to you. They have a heat ray. Yeah, they can make weather bend to their whim. As seen in the episode Journey to the Subnivean Zone, Koki and Aviva melt a bunch of snow to try and find the shrunk-down Kratt brothers without realizing that they were hurting the animals that lived there, so naturally, they use their snow machine. They have a snow machine. This show sprinkles in a bit of the sentiment of, what if extreme technological advancement is bad, actually? But then they have to backpedal because the whimsy of humans having creature powers is one of the main appeals, and it's really effective for kids to learn about these animals, and it's the good guys using the tech, so even if they majorly fuck up, they could still fix it with other tech. It's like, hey, phone bad, but look at the selfie I took. To be honest, I get it. I feel the same way. This shit is complicated. Aviva was so passionate about trying out groundhog powers, just because of how cute they are, and because the guys weren't interested, she tested them herself. Remember how in Season 1's Flight of the Butterflyer XT, I was confused about the Kratt brothers hibernating? Well, it happens again here, but they explain that the creature power suits try to replicate how animals would store energy in their bodies. So Aviva was able to hibernate exactly how a groundhog would. That makes sense, but wait, in the butterfly episode, they didn't have the creature power of the butterfly, they were just shrunk down. For sure they didn't think that through. Hey, that kind of sounds like something they'd say about the villains a lot. The first villain introduced is Zack in the episode Aardvark Town. Zack wants to mind control animals using robots, whether it's for his convenience or to sell them. In this episode, he uses his Zack bots to spy on the Kratt brothers. Even though this is his first appearance in the show, he and the Kratt brothers already know each other. The Wild Kratts know not to tell them about this baby Aardvark they just met that they named Slurpee. In this episode, Zack wants the creature to dig him a pool. My first instinct was that he was a billionaire Nepo baby. How else would he fund this robot obsession? So Zack kidnaps all the animals that live in aardvark holes. Turns out a lot of animals in Africa depend on aardvarks. I've loved aardvarks before it was cool, when I did a report on them in the 3rd grade. And, as much as Arthur is a great show, not a great depiction of an aardvark. Earlier in the books, he looked closer to an aardvark, but for whatever reason they made him severely depressed. I like the way they're animated here in Wild Kratts, though. Although when Zack ended up mind-controlling the aardvarks, it made me as upset as biblically accurate Arthur. But Zack is defeated by the end, and we get to see live-action aardvarks. But wait, was that Zack's first appearance? Or was Zack's first appearance in Polar Bears Don't Dance? Despite this episode being the 7th one that aired, it was the original pilot. I stumbled across this fact on the wiki when I Google searched why it looked so different. I mean, this is a big change for one episode, and it was completely unaddressed, so it makes sense that it was the pilot. In this episode, Zack steals a polar bear and a walrus to try to get rich off of them in a circus act. A pretty intense start. I think Mom of a Croc eases us into the series in a much more inviting and comfortable way. So even though PBS aired the episodes out of order, most likely on accident, I think it was a good move. Aviva also comes off pretty rude in this episode. Martin has to touch a polar bear to activate creature power, but that polar bear almost killed me before. Ay caramba, good luck! In Flight of the Draco, we meet Danita Donata, who turns animals into fashion. Very Cruella de Vil, but she doesn't fixate on a specific animal, and she doesn't kill them. She just freezes them, which is obviously still bad, but far less permanent so they have time to save them. Danita accidentally steals Martin along with the flying lizards, And as he's telling her off, all she can think about is how she should start a men's accessory line as well. Inspired by his beauty. Hate to say it, based! So if you had to pick a favorite out of those two, who would you go with? Green or blue?
The green guy speaks to me more.
God damn it. So it's not just for her own closet, but she also mass produces this for consumers as well. Pretty powerful that the demand for these products is also being critiqued and shamed here. These brothers are so based, it's unbelievable. I suggest instead of capitalism, we have Krattpitalism. Oh wait, we already invented that with this video, because like I said, all AdSense is going to the Kratt brothers charity. Danita Donata also had this mannequin pose beam that makes Martin pose in her evil fashion against his will. Unfortunately, he looks stunning. Like, in her first appearance, she made the best outfit we'll see from her. I think they really had to dial down how cute it was as to not distract from the message that this is bad. Before Chris helps Martin break free from this evil fashion show, we see that Zach is helping Danita by using his Zach bots as security. He also tries to be chummy with her, but she dismisses him, and the very obvious subtext is that she thinks Zach is ugly. She gets away in the end, but Martin unfreezes all the lizards, and our queens Koki and Aviva show off fashion inspired by animals that's ethical. Jewelry in the shape of flying lizards. We love to see it. In Platypus Cafe, we meet Gourmand, who tries to make meals out of endangered animals. And he even says he knows people who will pay top dollar for this meal. More capitalistic greed being the root of all evil in a PBS show? I adore it. This is why they're threatened by you, queen. For a split second, I thought that Gourmand was easily the most evil out of the three, because his mistreatment of animals, if he gets his way, cannot be undone. You catch my drift, he's trying to kill them. But we see his two customers are Zach and Danita, so maybe they're on the same level. Danita Donata and her meathead sidekick that I completely forgot to mention the first time, named Dabio, return in the episode Flight of the Butterflyer XT. They were nowhere near the threat they were in the first episode. They stole a bunch of butterflies after looking for Mexico for 4 months.
This isn't Mexico.
Did they not have a GPS? And then as soon as they found the monarchs, they died of natural causes, of just their lifespan.
What is happening to my butterflies? They're dying! No! Stop dying!
L so large, I'm moving on. Gourmand wants to serve Honey Badger as a dish to Zach in the episode Honey Seekers, and even uses the dough as a weapon to trap Chris and Aviva. Martin frees them as a honey guide bird because he uses his bird call to send a group of honey badgers after Gourmand. In the episode Bass Class, Zach's villainous ways causes him to challenge Martin's kid to a fishing contest. I will never give you context, but Zach lost by such an insane margin that he tried to cheat with robot fish, and when he got caught, he flew away crying, cause a kid beat him in a fishing contest. And this defeat still haunts him to this day because he brings it up seasons later.
Ever since that kid beat me in the fishing contest, I don't even like fishing.
Danita gathering fireflies for a, again, I hate to admit it, pretty slay dress led me to a theory that her sidekick Dabio is a Zach bot. Now let me explain. He is loyal and literal, the two traits we see constantly from Zach bots. Danita gave him so many orders back to back, and he very stiffly and quickly follows them.
Window closed now. Oh, how beautiful. Dabio, window open now.
All right.
We see him struggle to grasp her humor, and when he finally gets it at the end, he says LOL out loud. That sounds like some shit Siri would say.
LOL.
You don't say LOL.
My theory as of season 1 is that Danita went up to Zach and asked him for a hunky Zach bot. Let's see if this theory holds up. Would you believe me if I told you that in the very next episode, Mystery of the Weird-Looking Walrus has information that makes my theory significantly more credible? Zach has a robot that looks like a human child to steal this pearl, to get none other than Danita on his team. This episode also confirms that he's a spoiled rich kid, because after he exclaims, "I'm gonna be rich," he corrects himself and says richer. It does seem like, despite this, Zach does have a love of science, because Aviva says the two went to science camp together. She knows a lot of facts about Zach. his favorite number, the extra toe on his left foot, what he usually eats in a day, and his favorite color. It seems like they maybe used to be friends? No wonder I saw ship art of them. Or as I like to say, Shart, let me explain this in a way you'll understand, okay? When boy character and girl character are aware of each other very much, people are gonna think they're in love. Me personally, I find the fact that they may have been friends and are now working against each other an interesting enough dynamic as is. And guess what? The Kratt brothers knew Zach when they were kids too. And they stopped him from doing experiments on animals even back then, as seen in Tassie Chris. Zach Varmatek placed a contact lens spy cam into the eye of a baby rhino to try and steal information from the Wild Kratts headquarters. He successfully made rhino robots, but nature always wins. The rhino's motherly and family instincts to protect the baby override Zach's mind control tech. Another detail from this episode was Martin noticing that Chris was acting off when Zach was pretending to be him. Just fake Chris saying toodles was enough to set off Martin. This is the same Chris that uses Martin as a test dummy, but saying toodles? He's gone too far this time.
Toodles! Huh? Toodles? Chris could be such a geek, but something about him didn't seem right.
In the episode Cheetah Racer, Zach was spying on them from the sky with his robot disguised as a cloud. And he mocks Aviva because the two are always competing over who's the better inventor. And it's clear that this cloud camouflage really sticks with Aviva because she decides to duplicate it and make it better in the episode Zigzagged.
Aviva's cloud camouflage worked like a charm.
Back to the episode Cheetah Racer. My theory that Zach was a Nepo baby was also semi-confirmed when he says he'd use his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather's invention, the wheel. I think it would be a lot more than 9 greats, but I counted it when he said it. I don't know if he got stupid rich on that, because I don't think patents existed back then, but he's probably also related to somebody who invented the toaster or something. I also know Zach can probably replicate a creature power suit, but he probably doesn't want to because he's too much of a wimp to actually touch animals and activate it. Zach is seen having the tallest building in New York City, so yeah, he's the 1%. He should probably hide right now. But anyway, he's always beefing with pigeons, much like actual rich people in the city, putting spikes on telephone poles. Losers. Pigeons deserve so much better. Let's focus on Zach now, though. While he got the Zach bots to clean his skyscraper, he was also so giddy that he'll kill a baby falcon too. The Kratt brothers were taking out the Zach bots one by one, even tossing them, which, depending on where they landed, people probably died. Aviva got a hold of the Zachbots controller and programmed them to fly away with Zach. They said for vacation, but here's a very interesting question. Why not jail? So Zach doesn't only target animals, he also targets whatever he wants, like a very specific wood for a chair. Which is exactly what happens in the Big Orange Problem. He contributes to deforestation, endangering animals by getting rid of their habitats. And they make it very clear that this isn't ignorance, it's selfishness. Without fail, every time the villains are doing something villainous, the Kratt brothers will spell it out for them, why what they're doing is wrong. Danita successfully froze this cheetah to wear as a scarf shawl thing, but she flew too close to the sun when she wanted a matching cub to wear as a hat. This is when they start making her fashion designs really ugly. But anyway, because of the huge black and white stripes down a cheetah cub's back, she accidentally mistook this ferocious honey badger for a cub. Nature wins once again. I wonder how close the villains will come to victory. Maybe in a special they'll have a really good fake out? I want to be on the edge of my seat. And despite the formula for the villains getting pretty repetitive already, the animal facts are so fascinating. Like, did you know the spiny desert lizard that's called the thorny devil catches water droplets on its back, and the crevices along it are like straws leading the water to the corners of its mouth. I love learning about animals. I have to focus on the characters and the tech and the drama and the silliness, but if you want to learn as much about animals as I do, genuinely give this show a rewatch. Consider this a sparkling review. Gourmand tried to cook up all different types of raptors. He used a jetpack to catch up to Chris in Falcon mode. He successfully trapped them twice, once by throwing this sticky dough again, and the second time with an invisible net. Gourmand even got onto the Tortuga, but was thwarted by fake robot birds that shipped him off to Antarctica. Why not? Let me just think about the jail. When Zack was trying to cut down trees in a huge orange problem, the wild Kratts shined a light in his robot's eyes, leading them to put on sunglasses. Sure, this could be seen as them putting a filter over a lens so they can better interpret the input, but it seems very human. And I bring this up because in Birds of a Feather, we see a bit of Dabio's personality. He is very vain. He most likely follows Danita around so he can be a model. But who's to say a robot can't have this same dream? Honestly, the only really damning piece of evidence so far that Dabio isn't a robot is that he really felt the music and danced. And when Danita repeatedly commanded him to stop, he didn't. Another interesting thing to happen in this episode is Dabio mistakes Aviva for a bird of paradise when she uses a creature power suit. And I say this knowing full well this should have been in the text section. After Aviva puts on Chris's power suit, even though it's usually green for him, her transformation is purple. This means that the suits recognize who's wearing it. For the longest time, I was wondering why Danita wasn't trying to steal the creature power suits, but in this episode, she does tell Aviva that it should be used for fashion and that she wants it. Aviva saying no surprised me, because maybe if Danita had a creature power suit, she wouldn't steal animals? I don't know, maybe we should give this a second thought. We see more of Zack's jealousy towards Aviva in the episode The Gecko Effect when he steals the miniaturizer. Aviva is fully aware he tried to steal something from her, so she set up a booby-trapped alarm system. They just forgot to turn it back on when the Kratt brothers set it off. Martin outsmarts Zack with reverse psychology, but before that, we see Zack annoying the other villains with his gloating. No one likes this motherfucker except the fandom. The way Season 2's race for the Hippo disc started was really confusing. Martin and Chris were trading different creature power discs, and with the intensity of these two, I just assumed that Aviva made 2 of all of them, but predictably the two start fighting, and the Hippo power disc falls off the Tortuga HQ. Zack steals it even after the brothers save him, and Chris sounds so disappointed and hurt by this.
Zack, you're gonna steal our disc right after we saved you?
It's very clear Aviva gave up on him a long time ago, because not only is she not surprised, but she also says, "I told you he'll never change." She also equipped the power discs with security so he can't hack into it. The security she set up even says, "Is that you, Zack?" She hates this motherfucker. She knows the extent of his pettiness and she matches it. Creature Power Challenge is the first episode with Zack's Destructobots. And what's interesting is that the previous episode we just talked about, where he stole the creature power discs, is what inspired him to create them. Destructobots are microscopic Zackbots that drill into the Wild Kratts' tech, causing it to malfunction. With the creature power suit specifically, it caused them to turn into the wrong animals for the environment they were in. This episode really highlighted Zack's hatred of these guys. He hates the Kratt brothers more than he hates animals. In this episode, he locked their ability to turn back normal because he wanted them to drown and die. And Chris still gives him cookies at the end. What the hell? You better have hit a bomb in those cookies.
They're bombs.
I, was watching TikTok as a little, break to myself, and a TikTok live of a cow giving birth popped up. That's never happened before. This is the power of the Wild Kratts right here, because I am witnessing, nature and life in ways I never thought I would. Oh wow, he's going in. Oh my god. I literally can't even take my eyes off of this. Do you want to see a bit? No, I'm not gonna risk that. They kept talking about the beauty of the striped zebra pattern in the episode Zigzagged, so I thought this would be a Danita episode, but no. Aviva was just designing the Wild Kratts crew jacket. Would I wear this? Yes. Should they have made merch of this? Yes. Have we ever seen any of the characters wear this after this episode? No. Weird plot point, man. In Secrets of the Spider's Web, Danita is frustrated with her lack of new materials for the fall collection. She gets the idea to use, what was the name of the episode again? Secrets of the Spider's Web? What do you think her new material is gonna be? Duh, it's spider silk. I don't want to give her credit, but this is so spooky and seasonal. They scare Dabio to free the spiders, but Danita gets them back with a bird jet because birds are natural predators to spiders. Dude, not only does she know the most about animals out of all the villains, but in the end, when the Wild Kratts stop her evil scheme, they send her a package containing a sample of synthetic spider silk, and she really enjoys it.
No spiders were harmed in the making of this spider silk. Oh, it's quite nice.
This, plus her interest in the creature power suits, makes me feel like she's the most likely candidate for a redemption arc. Which would also make sense because it gives a hopeful outlook for the fashion industry. Danita is not feeling inspired in the episode Seahorse Rodeo, so she decides to call the Kratt brothers. First of all, how does she have their number? Second of all, how do they not have caller ID? Their gadgets are so cool, but they keep overlooking the most obvious things. Once Danita sees through Martin's awful lies, and Chris is in pain witnessing the whole thing, why is the show actually really funny? Danita sets her sights on Seahorse earrings. Jimmy temporarily distracts her with projections of crystals, which, you know what, I'll give him credit for that. Maybe they do keep him around for a good reason. Danita wants a blowfish crown, and it looks goofy as hell, and that's coming from me. Just as I thought she was losing her evil edge, she did one of the most evil things imaginable. She went back on a promise with a classic loophole.
I had my fingers crossed. See?
Oh, come on, no fair.
They flood her boat with a giant water balloon, freeing all the blowfish. Zack's evil scheme in Shadow the Black Jaguar was to use the Black Jaguar cub's camouflage ability to his advantage, further proving that he is the Wild Kratts' evil parallel, exploiting the creature's abilities instead of appreciating them. But the ending was so funny. The Kratt brothers snuck out the cub without Zack realizing, so he completely doesn't know the creature was freed. I wonder how long he searched before he realized. And you know what I just realized? How Gourmand could live his dream without being a piece of shit. In the episode Rainforest Stew, Gourmand wants to create just that. Motherfucker just likes a theme and likes feeling immersed. Well, I got something he can get immersed in. The Rainforest Cafe. I will say, although I hate what Gourmand is doing, I can appreciate that he doesn't send robots to do his bidding like Zack and Danita. Gourmand tackled a leopard by himself. Fitting, since this is the villain the Kratt brothers don't mind getting physical with. Because while they send Zack and Danita flying away on robots, they're not afraid to toss Gourmand off a plane. Gourmand explains his unnatural strength in Season 3's Hermit Crab Shell Exchange. He says he takes special vitamins.
No crab is stronger than me. I'm on a special vitamin program.
The same kind of special vitamins Liver King was on? In the episode To Touch a Hummingbird, Gourmand wants to make chocolate-covered hummingbird eggs, which sounds fucking nasty. His ideas are always immoral, but I've genuinely never heard of such a terrible flavor combo. In the episode Gila Monster Under My House, Zack is trying to turn these reptiles into wrenches. He keeps saying he's a great inventor, but look at this lazy shit. This guy looks like he smells like ranch mixed with heavy cologne. This guy would say, "Where's my hug at?" and then hypnotize a kangaroo to headlock you against your will. Dude drew this beard on to make himself look more palatable. Anyway, the way he was taken down was really funny. The Gila monster bit him, and for just a bit he was groveling to the Wild Kratts, asking them to help him, and they used it as a negotiation tactic. Release them first, and then we'll help. Amazing, no notes. In Season 2's Skunked, Zack got pretty close to downloading all of the Tortuga's information, but I bet you can guess what happened. Statistically, there's gotta be at least one person that had a very unfortunate awakening from this episode. What are you watching on the TV there, sport? Oh, skunk powers. All right.
3 days later.
Zack pollutes a stream in the episode Aqua Frog. He's truly just doing billionaire shit, and I'm glad we're teaching kids early on what corruption looks like, and what selfishness on this scale leads to. I think Zack only started torturing animals because he knew it upset his enemies. In the episode Osprey, he was on the hunt for the Wild Kratts' keys, but when Martin and Chris were close to finding them before he was, he cut down a baby osprey's tree as a distraction. Alright, nobody move or the endangered animal gets it! Guys, I know I'm gonna sound as delusional as the people who think Steven Universe was too easy on the diamonds and that they should have gotten the shattering penalty, but I need to see Zack specifically get his shit rocked at least once. I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, Martin. Oh, finally!
Wait a minute. Who are you?
In The Mystery of the Squirmy Wormy, we meet Ellie and Katie, and they're part of the North American Wild Kratts kids. They prove that worms can't drown, they breathe through their skin, and Katie proved this to Ellie by leaving a worm underwater. I didn't know they hired kids to conduct experiments. Would they still love you if you were a worm? Not likely, unless your name is Pinky, and they already formed a connection to you. We saw so many worms get eaten this episode, and Aviva still says,
we're not gonna lose a worm on my watch.
Multiple worms died in your watch, just not Pinky. Listen, they emphasize the importance of the circle of life, and in much sweeter, less cynical news, they saved the worm from frying in the sun. And the live-action kids at the end do the same, and create a compost bin with the Kratt brothers' guidance. There are real-life Wild Kratts kids. Nua, a Wild Kratts kid from Alaska, was first seen in the pilot animation style. But after this, they gave her a complete design overhaul. The comments on the wiki are all over the place. Somebody said she looks like Mulan when she really doesn't at all. And I just have to read this to you. I wonder how they decided suddenly just bring her back into the show. Maybe they were looking back in the old episodes and saw the original Nua and were like, what abomination of animation is this? She looked like a frickin' pancake. I am so glad that Wild Kratts did not use that original animation as normal. Listen, I like the new animation style better too, but I wasn't ready for that comment. Freaking pancake? What? In Build It Beaver, we meet a Wild Kratts kid who's not only a Wild Kratts kid on the show, but also in real life, because Aiden is Chris's son. This is their first appearance of their kids on the show, but Chris's other kid, Nolan, and Martin's kids, Ronan and Gavin, are also featured in the show, and although all the brothers in real life are also brothers in the show, 2D Martin and Chris do not have kids, which makes sense. Because if they did, they'd kind of be deadbeat dads in this show. So this is more of an Easter egg. If I didn't check the wiki, I wouldn't have known. Also, fucking wild hearing this voice.
Does it feel weird?
From this tiny little animated child. And then looking up Ronan Kratt so I can grab a screenshot for this video, and then this is what I see. He's not a baby. He can legally drink. What the fuck? In the episode Tazzy, Chris, we meet Kenny, a Wild Kratts kid who's Team Australia. Now would be a good time to point out how uneven the teams are. Why would you even split them up into teams if the biggest one by far was going to be North America?
Isn't America basically the planet?
When Ronan and Jenny find the Kratt brothers in the episode The Blue and the Gray, Koki tells them they got their search and rescue badge. Is this incentive for kids to join their research and rescue team? Is this a wilderness extracurricular activity like the Boy Scouts? Or is this an Easter egg to their charity where you can also earn badges? Let me read straight from the Kratt brothers Creature Hero organization website. Earn Creature Hero badges. When you complete Creature Hero missions, you can earn special Creature Hero badges in the mail. These missions could be anything from building a birdhouse in your backyard to fundraising for the new Creature Fuge. Earn them all to become the ultimate Creature Hero. And now I have a new goal in life. Thank you, and I'm not even joking. The most effective use of the Wild Kratts kids was when they saved the day in A Bat and the Brownies. After a bat's tree was struck by lightning, and Koki and Aviva called all the North American Wild Kratts kids, they hung up bat boxes, and at the end, we saw live-action children doing this too. In Attack of the Tree-Eating Aliens, they are called to a North American forest by the Wild Kratts kids, Katie and Aiden, to try and figure out what's killing the trees. And they stumble across a beetle they know doesn't belong there, but they didn't know the identification or where it's from. They've entrusted kids from all around the world to answer the call. And Yi explains that the culprit is the Asian longhorned beetle. They bring as many back to their home as they possibly can, but it is also up to nature to get them out of where they don't belong. So we see the woodpeckers also eat the beetles. A Wild Kratt kid named Javier calls the Wild Kratts to help him with a Gila monster who crawled under his house, and he really fears this reptile. Martin and Chris take the time to teach Javier that there's nothing to be afraid of. So while the kids help the Wild Kratts with intel and surveillance, the kids can also ask them questions anytime, and they can act as mentors. You know, the way Wild Kratts teach kids in real life. Now for miscellaneous notes on the Wild Kratts adult team, you know, our main characters. How does the core group of this organization run? Well, on the Tortuga, we see Jimmy, Koki, and Aviva sleeping in bunk hammocks. They might live on the Tortuga, but it's no Octonauts Octopod where they each have their own room. The episode Shadow the Black Jaguar starts with Chris and Martin choosing choosing what continent they'll be exploring that day. So a lot of the time, even their location can be picked on a whim due to curiosity about a specific species. That said, their wide range of animal friends comes in handy often, many being recurring characters to help out, or just to say hi when they're not the focus of the episode. You would be shocked and also alarmed at how many times they've used peregrine falcon powers. It's a fan favorite.
Back in creature time!
The live-action intro is much more somber than usual, as they explain to us that humans have hunted many species to extinction. But they have to get a little positive and amped up before they do their little jump into animation. I completely understand why they did this, but in any other context, this would be wild. The dodo birds are in fact dead. But what if we were too? What if? The episode opens with them taking care of a Philippine eagle, which is very endangered. They talk about the species possibly going extinct right in front of her, but she's too busy side-eyeing them, freaking out on her behalf. Aviva invented a time trampoline for the brothers to jump back in time and meet different extinct animals. They only go back twice, you'll see soon. Both times they need a babysitter, who knows how the time travel tech actually works. So Koki goes with them to see the dodo birds, and Aviva goes with them to see the Tasmanian tiger. Tiny tangent. I have a Tasmanian tiger tattoo that I got back in July, and I'm planning on getting a whole sleeve of extinct and endangered animals, and after I watched the special, guess what I got? It's a dodo bird tattoo, baby! Tattoo. I can't believe Wild Kratts inspired me to get my next tattoo. Woo. This episode where they tried to save the dodo bird from Gourmand's distant relative was so sad. They messed with his map and freed the birds, but Martin really wanted to take them back, and they wouldn't let him, and I understand why. Wait, no I don't!
Bring back the baby!
They were holding on to hope that the dodo bird survived, because they learned to distrust humans after what Gourmand's distant relative put them through. But guys, you saved them before anything remotely traumatizing happened to them. For all they know, Gourmand Sr. just fed them berries and took them on a little adventure. They look defeated as they stare at the 0 dodo bird on Earth screen and beg Aviva to let them go back. But Aviva explains that it's too risky, the tech is too unstable, and if they go back to the same time too quickly, it can cause a meltdown. Now here's where we get a really nail-biting cliffhanger. Zack has been lurking this whole episode in an invisibility cloak, and first he freaks out that Aviva discovered time travel before him, because even with his head up his own ass, he can admit that's really cool. So by the end, when he hears more about the glitches in the time trampoline, his plan is to trap them back in time. And he finishes it off by saying, quote, "and then they'll be extinct forever." I hate to say it, it's a good plan. It's the second time we've seen him try to kill them. And that line went incredibly hard.
They'll be extinct forever!
I gasped. The episode ends with the live-action Kratt brothers next to the dodo bird skeleton in the Museum of Natural History in New York City. Here's a picture of me next to that same skeleton. On to Season 3, Episode 7, back in Creature Time, Tasmanian Tiger, aka Thylacine. When they went back in time to visit the Tasmanian tiger, 99% of what they said I already knew. I've been hyperfixated on these guys for years. Like the way they looked at this video, that is exactly how I looked the first time I saw it. Honestly, every time I've seen it. I feel so seen. But the one thing I didn't know that Thylacines did is that they hunted kangaroos. I know they went after a lot of domesticated animals like sheep, which they portrayed perfectly with the ancestors of Danita and Dabio. Robots cannot have ancestors. Fuck, I tried, okay? Dabio's a human, shit. Very silly that even their family worked together. It seemed like the relative of Danita at least didn't harm her sheep for their wool. That being said, she is partially responsible for wiping out the Thylacines. So I hope she enjoys hell. Wait, no I don't. I hope it sucks for her. This time Aviva joined them, and she was able to make Tasmanian tiger power discs on the go. And using their wide jaw warning, Martin and Chris tried to teach them as many tricks to avoid humans and their traps. That is until the time trampoline started glitching out. Now here's my favorite part. Zack wanted to gloat to see the look on their faces as he explained his evil plan to them. So once again, hubris got in his way, because if he didn't monologue to them, his plan would have worked, but that's not the best part. The best part is their reaction. Imagine going through all that trouble to see them angry or sad, and this is all you get.
I'm trapping you back in time forever!
Huh? You're not gonna trap us back in time.
I'm gonna kill you! You're not gonna kill us. He didn't even care. Martin did not hesitate. He's like, rebuttal. No. They were at most annoyed and confused. They throw Zach in the present to get him out of the way, and Martin once again tries to bring the animals back to the present. And once again I say, Martin, you can't do that! You have to bring at least one more family too, so the siblings won't have to procreate! Please, Martin, please! But once again he has to leave them behind, and my heart hurty. They ended on a more positive note this time, saying even though they're most likely gone, they may still be out there. And I didn't even think they'd mention this, so this made me so happy. Also, Martin brought back fur and a tooth so they can still activate Tasmanian tiger powers, so that the Tasmanian tigers can help other animals to avoid the same fate as them. I'm gonna fucking cry. The time machine fucking exploded, by the way. So thus concludes the time trampoline arc, because to this day it hasn't been brought back. I have to move on. I'm so upset. You know what else I'm pissed off about? In the episode Lemur Legs, when the Kratt bros talked about lemurs, I thought they'd bring up Zoboomafoo, but they didn't, and that hurt. Because when they have experience playing and befriending and taking care of animals, usually they cut to these adorable flashbacks. And Zoboomafoo is a PBS kids show, so I'm sure they still have access to them. The Kratt brothers even made a cameo in Odd Squad, with lightning hands and thunder feet, which would never happen to them, by the way, but God forbid we get a mention of
Zoboomafoo.
Zoboomafoo aired from 1999 to 2001. Zoboomafoo, the titular bitchular, is a lemur the Kratt brothers befriend when they were walking in the woods one day, and long story short, they followed the bouncing lemur. In episode 1, they call him after they get back from adventuring in a bat cave, and they repeatedly say they smell like bat poop. Poop, poop, poop. So at first I thought maybe they didn't bring up Zoboomafoo and Wild Kratts because they had a pet lemur, but turns out I was completely misremembering. They call for Zabu at the beginning of every episode. He's a wild lemur that just comes over to visit. He jumps through the animal junction window, and the brothers offer him a snack, because Zabu only talks after he eats.
You're not you when you're hungry.
The device they get the animal food from was one of my favorite parts watching this back in the 90s. He burps, spins around, jumps, and now he's this impressive puppet. When I was younger, I knew the lemur wasn't actually talking, but I thought, how are they making his mouth move like that? I had no idea he was a puppet. Zabu is sniffing the crap-covered Kratt brothers and explains an animal with a long nose that he saw. Zabu sings the song Who Could It Be as an animated blob starts to take the shape of the animal he's describing. In this case, an elephant who walks right into Animal Junction the moment the song is over.
Horton hears you singing about my fat ass.
While they're talking about how amazing their new elephant friend is, these tiny claymation creatures keep butting in, but the Kratt brothers do not acknowledge them. One of the lemur's catchphrases is, "I can't believe my mind."
I can't believe my mind.
And he says this when he learns animal facts that really amaze him. I don't know what he means by this. It's not I can't believe my eyes or I can't believe my ears. It's so much deeper than that. I can't believe my mind sounds like something you'd say after you have a really great or really terrible idea. I can't believe my mind. My mind. Oh, I can't believe my mind. Maybe he's talking about like how his knowledge is growing, how his brain is growing, like, oh, I can't believe my mind. Wow, I'm gonna be so smart learning from the Kratt brothers. I don't know. I really don't know what he means by it. As the brothers play soccer with the baby elephant, Zabu says it reminds him of Zabuland. And then we have the whole claymation world. You know I'm a sucker for claymation. But let me tell you, they took the most random, bizarre, and slightly annoying approach.
My arms are too stubby.
I don't know how this fits into educational programming about animals, and the amount of characters from the claymation Zabuland I can't even keep track of. We got Narchi, Gooble, Sensit, Wiggy Waxwing, Zabu's pet green puppy, Slimantha, Noggin Drill, who's probably my favorite. He kind of reminds me of a Pokemon. Hitmontop vibes, you know? Snow Lemur, Zoboomafoosaurus, and baby Zoboomafoosaurus, Bugly, Phoebe, Psy, and of course, Zabu. The one good thing about these stories is we see how caring and community-oriented Zoboomafoo really is. But I'm pretty sure this is just his imagination, so it's really easy to be a good guy when you're just making shit up. And then I put out a fire that engulfed the whole town, and they tried to make me president even though I already was president, and everyone cheered and they lifted me up, and I was the best boy. The end. Oh, you didn't hear my story? Yes, indeed. A lot of the time, Martin and Chris just gleefully ignore him. And I can't blame them. What's even funnier is the second episode, where Chris says,
"Way to tell him, Zob."
After a very cheerful story that did not call for it.
You laughed for the rest of the day. The end.
Way to tell him, Zob. Way to tell him, Zob.
I couldn't think of a more obvious response to show that you zoned out. They have a gag of their very messy closet equipment falling on them. They fall in mud. An elephant sprays them with water. When I say they're the masters of physical comedy, I need you to know how much I'm not joking about that. And the animated versions of themselves in Wild Kratts really captured this goofy, fun, chaotic vibe they've had from the start. In the second episode, I Spy, we see Chris and Martin invent the spy goggles, which shows us what it's like to see as different animals. So at first, they were the inventors. They have kids writing them letters, more cutaways to Zabu land. Zabu always sings this song that he's feeling, insert animal name here, ish.
I feel elephantish. How about you?
No.
I don't like this song. It's so weird that now that I've experienced Wild Kratts, when I see a non-Kratt Brothers section on Zoboomafoo that goes on for far too long, I'm just like, oh my god, let Chris and Martin speak!
Wild Kratts!
Can I let you in on a little secret? At this point, we're not even halfway through the series. So if I were to cover every villain plot, every time the bros are silly, and every single piece of tech, this video would be a day long. From this point on, I'm only covering the juicy stuff, the hot goss, the most important information other than the actual learning about animals, and the notable specials. First of all, I was entirely wrong about Danita being redeemable. My god, in the episode Golden Bamboo Lemur, she stole an endangered lemur, and she gets the Wild Kratts busy enough so she can get away by releasing monkeys in Madagascar, which would all hunt the lemurs. She used her animal knowledge to cause as much harm as possible, and some of you ship Martin with her? In Season 5's Fire Salamander, she tried to burn the forest down, and the only thing that stopped her was the Tortuga's water jets. More like Squirtuga. No, I was trying to make a joke, like Squirtle, because water gun, but that sounded more like water cum. On the bright side, it's nice to see the Wild Kratts crew rip into the villains a bit more.
I am the internationally renowned chef.
In the Amazing Creature race, we see Koki in a creature power suit for the first time. Her color is orange. Each of them chose a creature to race as, except for Jimmy.
What do you do?
Jimmy finally faces his fears and joins them in a contest in the episode Capture the Fishmobile. There are many different episode formats. The villain-centered ones, the ones where they study creatures by pitting them against each other and comparing. We have rescue episodes when Chris and Martin get overzealous. There are many episodes where they save lost animals. And the episode Prairie Who introduced natural disasters into the mix. The whole group had to evacuate the Tortuga when it was lifted by a twister. They got separated, and when the creature pods weren't able to make calls, Chris explained it was due to interference from the Tortuga's central communication system. So I once again say, every piece of tech being powered by the same unstable source does not make sense. It's good for conflict, it's good for dramatic effect, I guess. But Aviva is the type of person to see a problem once and then fix it. Like with the invention, the ring chip, which was first seen and ruined in the episode Chameleons on Target. This device was meant to fix the bugs in the creature power suit. So for someone determined to innovate, she's really phoning it in with a Tortuga. Worst of all, the same problem is found in the creature power suits, which use beryllium-25, another rare element. In Season 3's Search for the Florida Panther, Martin and Chris, in a dragonfly power suit, catch many mosquitoes to scan for the blood it drank, looking for the one that has panther blood. Mosquitoes only travel 300 feet in their whole lives. So when they find the right one, they'll be close to the panther cubs that were separated from their injured mother. I point this out because would you have thought to scan mosquitoes for blood to help panthers? Neither would I. I thought once I surpassed episode 100, I would get bored and the show would get really samey. But animal facts plus creative problem solving? Give me 100 more episodes, actually. In A Possum in My Pocket, Gourmand wants to cook a baby opossum. I wasn't even even going to mention this until Gourmand put a comically large rock in Chris's pouch. Gourmand's super strength is once again bizarre. They got the rock out of Chris using physics, using a Newton's cradle. I don't know why they spent the time to create this when he could have just deactivated and reactivated. But also, this imagery is... Genuinely, this imagery makes me queasy. I kinda hate it. It was, once again, somebody's unfortunate awakening. When Martin uses praying mantis power, he's regular-sized, but when Aviva uses the same creature power, she's a giant, because girl praying mantises are significantly larger than the males. They also made a point to show that Aviva didn't program the female mantis's desire to eat the males.
Girl praying mantis, eat boy praying mantis. But we're good, Aviva, right? We're good?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Throughout the series, we've seen Gourmand's superhuman sense of smell. He is able to smell out the Kratt brothers as well as the ingredients he's looking for. And in the season 4 episode, The Last Largest Lobster, we see he has an invention to smell underwater. Remember how I keep saying, how are the villains not in jail? Well, it gets even more confusing. Because in season 5, we hear that Gourmand was kicked out of culinary school because his actions are illegal. You're fired. Because you lit this place on fire. The cops are probably waiting outside for me now, huh? Nah. Losing your job is punishment enough.
Christmas, 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 I love you. Christmas, Christmas, I love you.
How will they get us in the Christmas spirit? Well, first we learn about reindeers, and it lulls us into the magic of the season. Then, without warning, this 45-minute special decides, hey, we have so much more time. What if the Wild Kratts lost? A lot, in very painful ways. Very briefly, we see them having fun. Martin and Chris are using creature powers to decorate the tree, and since Aviva is busy wrapping up presents, she encourages Koki to go and join them. This is when we see the color change. As Aviva passes Koki her creature power suit, it changes from purple to orange as Koki puts it on. Aviva gives her presents, and Martin is really surprised at how small his is when Chris's present is huge. As an alarm goes off in the Tortuga, Martin quickly puts his gift in his pocket. The Wild Kratts kids from all over the world are reporting different villains stealing different baby animals. Gourmand is in Madagascar, Danita in South America, and Zach in North America. The other kids who called got straight to the point, but the kids who called to snitch on Zach had such a weird opening.
Help! Zach's pretending he's an evil Santa or something.
Is that it? He's stealing animals too, but the Santa thing is really freaking us out. Oh, ew, hurry! The villains all laugh about how they're gonna be rich. So once again, say it with me, we're speaking out against corporate greed. And for a Christmas special, it's super effective, because corporations tend to prey on people extra hard this time of year. The Tortuga goes up into space for the first time to track all the villains. To try and stop them as quickly as possible so they can get back to their celebration, they split up. Never a good idea. The speed at which these 3 villains easily brush off our heroes was brutal. Gourmand kicks the Kratera off a cliff and traps Martin and Doe. Zach takes down Aviva with her own robo-arms, which must have been a huge hit to her ego, and Chris was tossed into the air in a cloud of sparkly glitter. They regroup and have the same pep talk they had earlier. You guys don't have to monologue about how much you love animals, we know, stop dilly-dallying! The second try to get the animals back just seemed too easy. They freed them from the ornaments just by pressing them. It wasn't locked or anything. So when the villains started acting endeared by the animals and offered the Wild Kratts presents, it was one of the most obvious traps I've ever seen. I was screaming at the screen, but alas, they didn't hear me. Not only were they trapped, but they were dropped off on floating ice in the middle of nowhere, with nothing but their creature power discs and Martin's present in his pocket. Martin's present is a keychain that summons their creature power suits from wherever they are. Now, a few things to discuss here. 1. Aviva gave this present to Martin specifically because of how unorganized he is and how he's always losing stuff. Incredibly thoughtful of her. Also, look at how he smiles at his gift. Meanwhile, she just gave Chris a coupon to fix the time trampoline.
You are the best.
Okay, thank you, I get it.
Hello, Tasmanian Tiger.
Listen, I know I'm not supposed to be shipping. This is exhausting. But animated Martin and Aviva are in love. What? Who said that? Not me.
Oh, Aviva! So good to see ya.
You know, Aviva kind of sounds like Athena, so it sounds like he's saying it to me. Back to the episode. Once again, Zack is digging his own grave, because he's the one who let them keep the creature power discs. It was a way of being like, haha, you can't use it without your creature power suits anyway. But if he didn't do that, the villains would have won. But instead, the Wild Kratts travel all the way back to that creepy minimalist metal Christmas tree to free all the animals from the ornaments. And once again, the villains did not lock the ornaments. 2 new pieces of tech. The Tortuga Destructor Blast, which destroys the villains' robots. And after this, the Tortuga is able to go into battle mode a lot more. And also Danita's new mannequin robots.
You know who this motherfucker look like, low-key? Look!
A new villain was introduced in the Season 4 episode Spirit Bear. Her name is PAISLEY PAVER, and she's meant to represent the evils of industrialism. I thought we already had that with Zack's sauceless taste in giant skyscrapers. This guy would have a Cybertruck, but make it run on gas. Change my mind. Anyway, in Paisley's first appearance, she wants to pave over the Black Bear's home to make a storage unit. Her henchman Rex points out,
well, there aren't many people around here to use it, but who cares?
Her mentality is if we build, they will come. Creating artificial demand just to get rid of nature because she finds it dirty, and it also doesn't benefit her. She fits so well with the mentality of the other villains, but she's more like a Toontown cog, comically gray and devoid of fun. The one thing that is fun is she walks like Mr. Krabs, which I wasn't expecting. She's heard of the Wild Kratts, but they've never heard of her. She wastes no time letting them know that she doesn't care about the animals, so they quickly find out she is a villain.
Paisley who? Paisley Paver, villain! Alright.
By the end of the episode, Martin and Chris tear out the pavement with bear powers. She returns Season 5 in the episode Elephant Brains, and it's clear her specific gag is being thrown in the mud because she hates getting dirty. This time she wanted to build a tall tower, but she didn't even know what it would be for. The Kratt brothers even explain that she's not being smart with her business. She's always saying she's too busy, but her only plan is work. She doesn't even know what she's working towards, as long as it's destroying nature. The other villains at least have vision, and her vision is impaired. Yeah, I can say that. I have glasses too. No creativity, just a very peppy henchman that bounces off her deadpan in a very goofy way. In City Hoppers, Zack Varmatek tells Gourmand that there's a new villain and they need to welcome her into the group.
Welcome to our club! Welcome to our club! Welcome to our club!
Zack would be the one to seek out new villains to take down Wild Kratts. As we all know, his hatred of them goes the deepest. Zack calls this group the Legion of Villainous Villains, a name I'm not sure the rest of them signed off on. Zack recalls the slogan for Pave Nation Inc., paver of all natural things, whether they need it or not. Paisley's patience is wearing thin, and by the time Gourmand offers her a grasshopper covered in toffee, you can tell she fits into this group really well. And by that I mean she hates the group as much as the rest of them do. In the special Wild Kratts Halloween Creepy Creatures, Paisley, completely unamused, helps Zack with his haunted mansion. Danita and Gourmand are excited to create their own scary room to terrify the kids, but once the kids are actually having fun, they huff and puff and run away, exclaiming that another one of Zack's plans failed. Paisley barely spoke. She didn't witness Martin's creature suit malfunction where he gained the abilities of many different creatures, which was very cool. In fact, I don't even think the Kratt brothers saw her. She didn't make her involvement in this known because she didn't care. I wondered what her motive was until the very end when she handed Zack a bill. I have to respect that side of her hustle. She knows Zack's ideas will flop, but she joins in anyway because he's a billionaire who keeps reaching out to her. This is all she hears when Zack explains his evil schemes. Also, one last thing about this Halloween special, Koki, Jimmy, and Aviva absolutely ate the villains up with their costumes. Koki and Jimmy as Danita and Dabio was very fun and cute, but Aviva as Zack was personal. In the episode Choose Your Swordfish, Aviva beat Zack at fencing, but he surprisingly held his own because they both learned how to fence at science camp. But seriously, Aviva will never back down from a chance to cook this fool, and I love that for her. The way they wrote Paisley in Amazing Amazon really annoyed me, because just like during their haunted mansion, she took a step back, but this time there was no reason other than efficiency. She doesn't have the time to be interesting, apparently. The most annoying part is that all the villains just took turns saying their catchphrases instead of interacting with each other. If there's an episode with all of the villains, it's really just a Zack episode, because he's always the one orchestrating it. And he's the only one with interesting dialogue in this special. Like when he was genuinely impressed with Aviva's invention, and Paisley rolls her eyes. But you know who I want to see butt heads? Danita Donata and Paisley, because they are exact opposites. Danita finds nature so beautiful she wants to sell it, and Paisley finds it disgusting and wants to make money destroying it. I feel like Danita can try giving Paisley a makeover, and it backfires to the point where Paisley wants to pave over her fashion empire. Just two boss bitches taking shots at each other. The perfect episode for an interaction between these two is the episode The Colors of China, when all of a sudden Danita hates color and patterns. It felt so forced. Like, I know fashion is fickle, but the one constant with Danita is her bright pink jet and her love of all things flashy. So I wish we got some sort of reason for this 180. Like, I wish Paisley talked about how her boring paving industry was booming, so that's why Danita wants to change for profit. I feel like that would have made much more sense. In Season 7's Race to Goat Mountain, Paisley wants to build a luxury resort called Asphalt Ascend. No one's going to a place called Asphalt Ascend. They criticize where she's building because it's home to so many animals. And Martin even tells her it's a terrible name too. Get her where it hurts. Tell her her marketing is ass fault. She agrees to a race for who gets to decide, but for both sides this feels risky. Why would Chris propose this, and why would Paisley agree? Like, obviously the Kratt brothers win, but the special Our Blue-Green World is the last appearance of Paisley. Apparently the brothers always have their biggest fights on Laundry Day, over the colors blue and green. And by extension, which is better, the world's water or its land? They even sang a whole song about it, and I gasped. It's not the first time they've sung, but usually it's in a holiday special where they all join in. But this time they have solos and music video visuals. Gagged is an understatement. I need to go outside. Listen, you know I'm a Martin girly. Defensively so. But how are you gonna take a stand against land? That's where we live, bud! On the flip side, look at how tall he is in this standoff. You Chris stands are cooked. You Chris stands are cooked! Martin ends up getting blue whale powers this episode, and it looks very cursed. Usually their whale power suits look like they're controlling a submarine or a vehicle, but in this one, oh, he is the blue whale. The brothers stop their fight in a very forced and unclear way. Like, literally they just stop fighting because they're giggling. Which, even though it doesn't make sense, it's pretty cute. Speaking of which, Paisley Paver gets redeemed this episode. She saw coral and thought of it as an architectural marvel. Because of this and the threat of a dried up planet, she 180s her motive and style. Here's what bothers me. Even though I think it makes sense that Paisley, who knows the least about nature, needed to learn about it to care about it, I still think Danita Donata made more sense for a redemption arc. They have sprinkled hints for Danita's growth throughout the series. She's already seen the beauty in nature. I know all it comes down to is Danita is a more iconic villain. Maybe Paisley was less popular. But here's the thing, we haven't seen Rex since Race to Goat Mountain, so maybe he's still evil? Who knows? This episode was rushed and Paisley's character development happened entirely too fast. If you were to make a Wild Kratts villain, what would their thing be?
Why is she still talking?
The Kratt brothers find out a new mantis species was named after them. This is real, the Liturgusa krattorum. Their reaction and celebration was adorable. And the best part is when they finally activated Liturgusa krattorum powers, they had an extra slay Sailor Moon transformation. More like Liturgusa Cuntorum. I think the animators know what they're doing. Like in the Season 7 episode Salamander Streaming, the brothers did this for some reason.
One for me and the other one for me.
Completely unnecessary, has nothing to do with Salamander Streaming, but it certainly caught my attention. Salamanders are awesome. Yeah, I'm sure they are, I just don't know how interested I am in all that. Well, let me put it this way. I'm listening. Back to the Liturgusa Krattorum. The OG villains are jealous that the Kratt bros got a species named after them. I wrote here it makes sense for Paisley to get left out because she wouldn't give a shit. This was before I realized they haven't met yet, and she would be the only one to truly care about nature, even though there was no foreshadowing for that. Anyway, they try to capture all the Kratt named mantises, but end up getting in their own way because they cannot work together to save their lives or end in animals. I also have another favorite moment. Martin and Chris get to be regular sized in these bug suits, and they just do this to fuck with Zach. I love when they do things with malice. It doesn't happen often enough.
Hi, Zach.
Let's go! Bite his head off! I'm a Martin girly, because if either of them were to end Homelander, it would be Martin. He's soft when it comes to animals, but he gets so much more violent with the villains.
What you got there, Zach? Oh, that's Shadow.
The special Wild Kratts Alaska Hero's Journey follows the very impressive salmon run that spans over 414 miles in just about 23 days. This was a really weirdly touching episode that all started with Aviva accidentally dropping her time thruster into the stream. The time thruster is the most important part of the time trampoline working again. Throughout this expedition, we see many salmon being eaten by many animals, unable to complete their journey and lay eggs, but they frame this as the salmon are still heroes because they give animals the energy they need. The way they explain the food web and the circle of life is so gentle and comforting, but also really realistic. The approach they take is perfect. One visual I will say really freaked me out was this mangled squid killer whales tore apart in the episode This Orca Likes Sharks. But to be fair and to their credit, it was really realistic. Back to the salmon. When the salmon reach the end of their journey, fucking Jimmy stupidly lands the Tortuga on top of a waterfall. And when it falls in, the water flow stops, and the fish and their eggs need to be submerged in water very soon or they'll all die. Koki, Chris, Aviva, and Martin all say it's their fault, when it wasn't. It was Jimmy's. They all jump to the rescue with creature powers, except for Jimmy, the one person who was actually responsible for this catastrophe. I will say though, when Martin double lassoed as a bald eagle, that was the closest I've ever felt to feeling patriotism. The salmon babies are saved, they got their time thruster back, all the salmon parents reach the end of their life and die, and finally Aviva is able to test out the time trampoline again, but insists they test with a can this time. And good thing they did, because the can came back all burnt and mangled. She still has a lot of work to do. Work that still has to be continued over the next 3 seasons, because the time trampoline still hasn't made a comeback. I have a feeling, just because I'm usually really unlucky with this stuff, that a time travel episode will happen right after I post this, but we'll see. I might just have to make another video. So remember how I said I'd lay off Jimmy? I lied. At the end of season 5's The Cobra King, as snakes are approaching his friends, he fearfully flies away and abandons them there, leaving them stranded with the venomous predators. That's literally how the episode ends. For a second, I thought that Jimmy's laziness was just another gag that would go unnoticed, but this clip from season 6's In Search of the Easter Bunny both proved me wrong, but also vindicated my annoyance.
He's not gonna help?
And then again in the Amazing Amazon adventure.
Oh, good. He's asleep again. I can always count on him for that.
As reckless as the brothers sometimes are, I think Jimmy is their true Achilles heel. In season 5's The Dole Duplicator, we not only meet the animal of the dole, but Aviva makes an invention called the Duplicator. The titular bitchulers. With an S. The duplicator looks like a telephone booth, and it's supposed to create copies. It needs more work because when Martin and Chris need to create clones of themselves to scare away a tiger, it briefly works, but then their clones disappeared very quickly. Sci-fi cloning always freaks me out, but in a show about animals, it makes a lot of sense. When they go back in time, can they bring back a thylacine and clone it? It would still be scientifically accurate because scientists are working on that right now. In season 6's The Real Ant Farm, Martin distracts Zach by flossing and dabbing, and I hate to say it, but Zach's reaction was exactly the same as mine. Using tardigrade power in the episode Tardigrade Extreme, Martin and Chris are exploring space. I compared the minions to these animals in the last lore I made, if you even care, but wow, talk about an out-of-this-world adventure. Isn't it weird that they didn't say that? That sounds like something they'd say. In the Great Creature Tail Fail, a malfunction in their suits causes them to transform transform into animals with other animals' tails. This is just one of many examples of this show's engaging storytelling being the perfect vessel for the lesson they've chosen. Tails have many different purposes, whether it's a prehensile tail to hang from trees, a tail for swatting flies, a tail for protection, a tail to swim, a tail that falls off to escape predators, a tail with a warning. It is crazy that I am still glued to the screen 156 episodes in. I obviously love these educational kid shows in general, or else I wouldn't be making the videos I'm making, but this is a whole other level. This is like concerning. In this episode, Aviva also made a creature power belt, so you can activate just the power of the creature's tail. We see Jimmy flipping pancakes with a beaver tail, and this is the first and only time we've seen him use a creature power. His color is red. Is it because he's a redhead? Be honest. This whole time I was guessing piss yellow for his pissy attitude. The special Cats and Dogs starts with the Kratt brothers witnessing a dog chasing a big cat up a tree. All of a sudden they got a bunch of calls from Wild Kratts kids asking them questions about dogs and cats. Because guess what? They're watching too. I thought these kids were only filled in when they were called, but it seems as though in the animated universe, they're broadcasting their travels and discoveries to the kids as well. This is when we get this hilarious scene.
Why does my dog love me so much? Why does my cat act so cool?
Well, the Kratt brothers are learning about different types of dogs and cats, including a cat that can swim and a dog that can climb. Zach wants to trap all the wild dogs and wild cats to sell as pets to kids. The first way Zach stops the bros from stopping him is when he sent robots to mess with their creature power suits. This time, the glitch caused the brothers to turn into cat dog. No joke, they're connected at the torso and Chris is a dog and Martin is a cat. The way they stopped Zach was completely accidental. A little kitten grew with the miniaturizer and swatted Zach's jet from out of the sky. Somehow, plane crashes are cute in a show like this. Aww. In the season 7 episode Outfoxed, Aviva made an invention that could show you the trail of different scents, so you can track different animals or different things. In this episode, we see that Gourmand has a bloodhound named Nostril to help him track scents. When has this Wario-looking motherfucker ever needed help smelling? Bro, that's kind of his whole thing. Did he get into a nose-related accident? Also, he befriended an animal. Never thought I'd see the day. The invention of Aviva made can also leave scents, so Gourmand and Nostril are thrown from their mission of cooking foxes. Actually, I don't know how in on this plan Nostril is, and I feel awful that he's an accomplice, actually. In No Name Dream, Martin wakes up from a nightmare where all the baby animals he forgot to name are crying, and he wakes up crying, determined to find and name them all. And you question why I'm a Martin girly. I better feel the winds of change after this video. Because why on earth did a bunch of Chris edits popped up when I specifically looked up Martin Kratt edits? I'm gonna scream. I made my own edit because I'm tired of waiting.
Hi, Zach.
Oh no, he's hot!
Remember when I kept questioning what Jimmy's job was? Well, in the episode Fish Out of Water, he has the same realization. Turns out, he was the fish out of water all along. Aww. But because they're having a mushy Full House moment, Koki and Aviva cannot teleport at all. Which is strange because they've never had this much trouble teleporting things in previous episodes. But whatever, Jimmy needs a win, I guess. I kid, I joke, I screw around, but this is one of the best Jimmy episodes of all time. In this episode, we really see how much he's learned. He's making scientific observations, not leaning on or depending on the others to explain things to him. He genuinely has a passion for this. And he's gotten so much smarter since his first appearance. He found Chris's creature power discs, saved the bros, and got his own celebration at the end. The only thing that could have made this episode better is if Jimmy activated his own creature power suit for the first time, but alas, that didn't happen. A huge W for Jimmy regardless.
Watching the Wild Kratts study many different animals and really get out there really inspired me to watch the Wild Kratts live in concert.
Nothing's gonna get past me. The show opens with the animated Kratt brothers wondering what creature they will encounter today before deciding on kid creatures and jumping out of the animation, which they call animation. They are self-aware, they are meta, they are dimension-hopping gods, but we already knew that. The rest of their crew and the main villain Zach Varmatek were all animated, and I was really on the fence about this. I thought they could easily cast someone who looked like the cartoon characters, but I think the combo of look with a close enough voice is what really threw it off. The live show has its own storyline, but it also doubled as a clip show, as they show off all the other times they've activated a certain creature power on the screen. In this show, they transform into a praying mantis, rattlesnake, hermit crabs, and they saved Cheetah for last, which I found very interesting because all the other transformations were way more elaborate and grander. The costume department devoured. The transformation sequence happens when they play a slow motion clip of the Sailor Moon transformation, then live action Chris and/or Martin comes back on the stage when the lights are down. Their creature power suits glow, and when the lights come up, there they are.
The Crusher! And the little one is the Pincher!
All the costumes had me gagged. The rattlesnake in particular was huge. But what exactly was the story? Due to the brothers' clumsiness, they drop all their creature power discs and have to collect them all. They use the miniaturizer to do this. Before they shrunk themselves down, a kid in the audience shouted, "How does it work?" And he was truly saying what we were all thinking. And first we saw dolls of the Kratt brothers on stage. It was so goofy and amazing, but it was only for a split second. I really wish I took a picture of it. Then the setting changed to show tall grass and big bugs. They were miniaturized now. I found that I was more easily amused than the kids, because even though the audience participation was fantastic and everyone was having fun, translating cartoons to live action presents challenges. Me personally, I wish the screen they played the clips on was a lot larger, but I understand they prioritized the costume budget. As they should. The creature powers needed to be the star of the show. Anyway, they also created live-action Zach bots. You know, from the show! And I thought, wow, they look really good. But then I heard a kid scream, "That looks fake!" Kids are a tough crowd, let me tell you. After the 20-minute intermission, Zach sent the mini-bots to mess with their creature powers, resulting in a Frankenstein's monster of creature powers. I'm scared! Will the brothers prevail? Of course they do. In fact, Zach made them stronger now, because, they have the powers of multiple animals. Idiot. Their only disadvantage was the connected body, like in the cat dog episode, remember? Their connected body resulted in a very silly bit where they kept running one way and the other, with the brother running backwards shouting, "Not again!" Peak theater. Although I will say it's pretty strange that they didn't need to fix all their tech after that. Maybe an unseen Aviva was working overtime behind the scenes, like she always does. Finally, we arrived at the furry finale, where they transformed into cheetahs and ran away, and I've missed them ever since.
He still has his testicles.
This is a clip from the show Be the Creature, a clearly more mature and more brutal documentary-style show that they hosted on the Discovery Channel. The context is they thought this bull's balls were ripped off, but it was actually a chunk of his leg that a Komodo dragon ripped off. So even though the bull is still gonna die, they just seemed happy he wasn't castrated.
That was too brutal to imagine.
Just bros being bros, and guys being guys. We love to see it. I think I might play the WILD KRATTS games on my second channel. Let me know what you think. We have officially reached the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out to Jake. They helped me research for this video. I have to plug this video they made on VR content farms. It was hilarious. I highly recommend. I was cracking up the whole time. If you have anything to give, please be sure to check out the link below. Evasive has a whole spreadsheet of different GoFundMes where you can help many people in Palestine. So if you have anything to give, you know, 'tis the season. I really appreciate all of you, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe if you did, and have a great day. I'll see you on the creature trail. Bye!